The plants sitting on your windowsill right now are basically snitching on your personality without you even knowing it. And once you hear how this actually works, you're going to look at every plant shelf you walk past completely differently. Stick with me because by the end of this, you're going to know exactly what your own plants say about you. And honestly, it might explain a few things about yourself that you never connected before. Here's something that always gets people. Two friends can walk into the exact same plant shop, look at the exact same shelf, and walk out with completely different plants. One grabs a giant, messy, wild-looking monstera. The other one picks a tiny, perfectly symmetrical succulent. Same store, same options, same day, totally different choice. And that's not a random. Psychologists have actually looked into why this happens, and the pattern is way more consistent than you'd expect. Let's start with the problem. Most people get wrong first. A lot of people think plant choice is just about looks, or what's trending, or what fits the room. That's part of it, sure, but researchers who study this stuff found something deeper going on. The plants you're drawn to tend to line up with actual personality traits, the same ones psychologists use in real personality tests, like openness, conscientiousness, and how much control you like to have over your environment. So, this isn't some horoscope style guessing game. There's actual psychology behind why a low maintenance succulent person and a high drama fiddle leaf fig person are statistically kind of different types of people. Let's go through the big categories because once you hear these, you're going to immediately think of someone you know. First up, succulents and cactus people. If your plant shelf is basically all succulents, tiny pots, spiky little guys, things that survive weeks of total neglect, this usually points to a personality that values independence and low emotional maintenance in general. Researchers who study plant preference link succulent lovers to traits like being practical, low drama, and preferring stability over chaos. These are people who like things that work without needing constant attention, and that mindset tends to show up in other parts of their life too, like preferring routines that just run smoothly instead of constantly needing to be managed. There's also a control element here. Succulents basically punish you for overwatering them, so people who consistently choose them tend to be the type who likes clear rules and predictable outcomes. Give them a plant that needs constant, unpredictable attention, and they'll actually feel stressed out by it, not soothed. Next, let's talk about monstera and big leafy jungle plant people. If your place looks like a mini rainforest, giant leaves everywhere, plants climbing up poles, stuff spilling out of every pot. This tends to line up with higher openness to experience, which is one of the actual big five personality traits psychologists use. These are people who like variety, who get bored with minimal or overly clean spaces, and who are usually drawn to bold visual statements in general, not just with plants. If you've got a jungle person in your life, check their walls too. There's usually art, patterns, and color everywhere else. There's also a social layer to this one. Big leafy plants often get chosen by people who want their home to feel alive and welcoming, almost like they want guests to feel the energy the second they walk in. Openness isn't just about liking new things, it's also about wanting your environment to reflect a mood, and jungle style plant lovers tend to care a lot about atmosphere. Now let's talk about orchid people, because this one's interesting. Orchids have a reputation for being difficult, a little fussy, needing specific light and specific humidity to actually rebloom. People who consistently choose orchids and actually manage to keep them alive and blooming tend to score high on conscientiousness. That's the personality trait tied to being detail-oriented, patient, and willing to put in consistent effort for a payoff that takes a while to show up. This connects to something researchers call delayed gratification. Basically, your willingness to wait for a reward instead of needing something instant. Orchids don't bloom on demand. You do the work quietly for months sometimes before you see the payoff. People drawn to that kind of plant tend to be the same people who are fine grinding on a long term goal without needing constant validation along the way. Now let's get into snake plants and pothos people, because I think a lot of you watching this fall into this category. These are what people usually call beginner plants, and they're wildly popular for a reason. If your collection is mostly snake plants and pothos, this tends to point to someone who values simplicity and function over spectacle. You're not trying to impress anyone with your plant shelf. You just want something alive in the room that makes a space feel a little better without turning into a whole project. This group also tends to score a bit higher on something psychologists call practical intelligence. Basically, being smart about matching effort to actual need. Why get something demanding if a plant that thrives on neglect gives you basically the same visual benefit? People who think that way tend to apply the same logic everywhere else in their life too, cutting out unnecessary complexity whenever they can. And finally, let's talk about the plant collector, the person with 40 plants who knows every single one by name. This tends to line up with a mix of high openness and something researchers call nurturing orientation, which is basically a genuine drive to care for something and watch it grow. Plant collectors often talk about their plants almost like pets, checking on them daily, celebrating a new leaf like it's a real achievement. This isn't really about the plants themselves anymore, it's about the actual act of caretaking. People with strong nurturing orientation tend to feel calmer and more grounded when they have something depending on them, even if that something is just a fern on a shelf. Now, here's where this gets even more interesting because it's not just about which plants you pick, it's also about how you treat them. Researchers looking into this noticed that people who overwater their plants, who literally kill them with too much attention, often show patterns connected to anxious attachment style, meaning they express care through constant checking and intervention, sometimes to the point where it backfires. On the flip side, people who underwater and forget their plants entirely aren't necessarily careless people in general. A lot of the time, this points to someone whose attention is scattered across a lot of different things, not someone who doesn't care. So even the mistakes you make with plants say something. It's not just about which ones you buy, it's about your actual relationship with taking care of something that depends on you. Here's the bigger idea I want you to walk away with. Your plant choices aren't random, and they're not really about plants at all. They're a quiet, physical expression of how you like to interact with the world, how much control you want, how much attention you're willing to give, and how much you enjoy watching something slowly grow because of the effort you put in. Next time you walk past someone's plant shelf, or even your own, take a second look. It's basically a little personality snapshot sitting right there in plain sight, and most people have no idea they are broadcasting it. If this made you think about your own plant collections differently, subscribe so you don't miss the next video, where I break down something else about plants that most people never notice it.